welcome to the Author to Authority podcast. And I have my authority gang with me today, and we are all together. Woo! The last few months, it's kind of been 3 out of the 4 of us. So I'm really excited to have Krystle Dookoo, Carol Boston, and Samantha King. And today we are going to continue our discussion from last month. And we were talking about getting out of that comfort zone, breaking that box that's been holding you back from doing what you need to do in your business. And one thing I have learned, especially over the last almost 6 years since, RTI Publishing and me starting to do that, is every time that I'm going for a new level, there's a box I got to break through. Mm. Whether it's a mental box, whether it's a physical box, whether it's a systems in my business box, there is so many things that we allow to control our business and limit it. So that's why I'm so excited for today's conversation, especially since we have the Queen of Reframe in the house, Carol Boston. So why don't each of you guys we haven't done this in a while, why don't each of you guys just take like a quick minute, 90 seconds, and just do your introduction, because we haven't done that in quite a long time. So Samantha, did you want to go first?
Absolutely. I am Samantha King. I am a digital product, and online course mentor, helping service providers package and sell what they know online in a way that fits nicely and snugly into their business model.
Love it. Krystle.
Hi, my name is Krystle Dookoo, and I'm a social media manager. I work with small business owners and entrepreneurs, especially in the service industry, to grow their brand online and take their message out to a wider audience.
And Carol.
My name is Carol Boston, and as a business leadership coach, I help female business owners and a few good men to know their value, own their power, and advocate for themselves so they rise up and become the lion and lioness leaders they were created to be, resulting in many of them doubling and tripling their income. And that's what I do.
I love it. Love it. So let's get into it today. Now, the 3 of us talked the last time. So Carol, why don't you share some thoughts that you have around, breaking out of that comfort zone, and then we'll just kind of take it from there.
I think a great place to start is that people confuse comfort with familiarity. Mm-hmm. And oftentimes we will stay in something or continue to do something because it's familiar, even when it's uncomfortable. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Right? And so I think, just defining that it's not the same thing, because, for example, your comfort and your convenience don't live on the same block. They're not even in the same zip code, right? You have to be willing to get uncomfortable to get to the next step. And then, from being able to reframe that, right? Because empowering questions help you reframe from focusing on what isn't working. And oftentimes when we get uncomfortable, that's exactly where our brains go, about what isn't working, right? And then what we end up doing is we make ourselves more uncomfortable, thinking we're going to solve the problem by focusing on that. So you could ask yourself the question, what if what I'm feeling really isn't discomfort, it's excitement?
Mm-hmm. Ooh, I love it.
What if what I'm feeling really isn't fear at all? It's excitement. Because in the body, the same chemicals, endorphins, everything are released when you think you're fearful, right? Because you're assigning a value to it, or whether you've decided it's excitement. It's the same chemicals. Mm-hmm. Serotonin, all these things get released. And we've decided to assign a value of negative or positive to different feelings, when feelings just are. Feelings just are. Mm-hmm. So if we came from the perspective that nothing in this world, absolutely nothing, has any value, nothing, except that which we assign it, mm-hmm. that puts us in a position of power, because now we own that we're choosing.
Yes.
That's so where cool. I would jump off and start.
Love that.
when you were talking about that, Carol, it got me thinking back. Over the last several years, I've increased my package prices almost every year. And each time, well, actually, it's a lot easier now, but I remember the first few times that, I increased it. And that was like stretching. That was like busting out of my comfort zone. And people are like, you should be charging like $25,000. And I'm like, I'm having a hard time believing for 3 right now. Right? and I realized that, the problem was me.
Yes.
And once I did that, it has freed me. Now, I am increasing my prices, but I've also recognized the fact I got some training on it. And I realized that, as my network grows, as my authority grows, as people come to know me more, I can charge more. So, I think there's a balance between being afraid or not thinking that you're worth what you want to charge, but you also have to assess what will your market, what will your network hold. Like if you have a network of people that don't make a lot of money and you're trying to charge 10, 15, 25,000, obviously you've got to extend your network out, right? So for me it was like, okay, I'm going to increase my prices, but I had to break through that fear. I had to reframe it and think, this can't be an emotional decision. It has to be a proper business decision. And so the last couple of years, I've made some pretty big jumps. And by the end of this year, I'm going to be making a couple of more. So,
well, one of the things when people, I would encourage you to not call it prices. You're increasing the investment because of the added value that you're bringing.
Ooh, Carol, you're so sweet. I love it.
Yeah.
Well, it's true for all of us, right? What is the first thing I say I help female business owners do? Know their value.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Because first, that's your stepping off point. Clarity. Clarity is power, and there's power in choice.
Mm-hmm.
So the first thing you had to look at, you just said it, that it was me. You were choosing, right? And only when we own that we are choosing can we then choose differently, right? And so a lot of that discomfort came from, in my opinion, not knowing your worth and your value.
Yeah.
And allowing something outside of you to determine that. And that brings discomfort. When you've got somebody chirping over here, you should be, right? Because you've heard me say it before, we got to take that word should and should out of our vocabulary because it's always about a make wrong. You're even trying to make yourself wrong. I should be doing this. And then if you don't, you're wrong. Well, I shouldn't have done that, but you did it. So you're wrong. Right. So we create as we speak. So watching our languaging is incredibly, incredibly powerful. Yes. And I would love to defer right now to Krystle because she gave a great example earlier, if she's willing to share it, because she has shared with me before. I start to do something, Carol, and you pop up in my head.
Carol the D-Shooter. That should be your next title.
The D-Shooter.
That is another word that Carol has effectively and very necessarily taken off of my vocabulary. The first was being why, and now the second is should, right? Because it's true. And one of the things that I wanted to add before I shared that is that, Kim, you were saying how, you're doing these things and you're increasing your investment and doing these things for your business. But guess what, right? I feel like one of the biggest part of stepping out of our comfort zone is knowing that we have to be willing to grow ourselves and take a deep look at where we do what we have to work on and what we have to develop and say, okay, I know I have to work on this aspect of myself because I have to be able to give more to my clients, so to my customers. So where do I need to work on in myself first, right? And I know Carol and I talk about, like Carol always said, you can't, like, to grow your business, you have to be willing to grow yourself as well. And so that's one of the things that, I had to, because a lot, and wondering, well, what am I doing? Why is my business, before the word I was introduced in part questions, my big question would be like, why is my business not growing? And then after learning about it, working with Carol and learning about empowering questions and learning the word why always puts me in a state of defensive, because then I start to get negative. You're not doing this. You're not, I should be doing all those words. Right. And then it's once you started investing in myself, investing in learning more and asking myself the question, what is one thing that I can do? Then it started to now make me assess what the areas that I needed to work. And that is, I'm so grateful for that, because now I'll sit down and be like, I want to wallow a little bit. Sometimes you're like, I don't want to be a big person today. I want to wallow a little bit. And then I can't, right? Because then I hear Carol's voice in my head. Like, no, what is one thing, give yourself 5 minutes, but, and then those questions are in your head that you start, you naturally, it becomes part of your psyche. That's the best way I could describe it, that you find yourself now asking these questions, and you are looking for the one thing, and then not focusing on what you should have been doing, but what can I do? What is one thing that I can do now to make a change or make a difference or move it forward, So, yeah.
I love what you're just saying, because there's a term now for people in Krystle's age group. And, my kids do it too. They come to me and they say, Mom, adulting is hard. And I start to laugh, right? I'm like, yeah. We just didn't call it adulting when I was adult. You were just expected to suck it up, Buttercup.
Right.
But you know what? Something I'm finding really interesting during this discussion, and then I want Samantha to chime in for a minute, is, we've got such a diverse age range in here. Krystle's in her 30s. Samantha, are you in your late 30s?
I think so. I always say this, right? I'm turning 30. The thing about me is I've been with my husband since we were 18. So I still kind of feel like I'm not, in my head, I don't feel 37, but I'm turning 37. So I feel like that's my late 30s. I think I've officially hit late 30s.
I just turned 50 and Carol's a little bit older than that.
You can say how old I am. I'm 61. I'll be 62 this year.
So, but look at all of us, right? We all over the last few years have just taken massive strides in breaking out. This time last year, Carol, I was just meeting you.
Yes.
And, the growth and change over you in this last year, your messaging was always there. But in the last year, you've broken out of your comfort zone. You've redefined who you are. You've redefined, how you present yourself. Actually, I met all of you around the same time. I think, Samantha, I met you November 2019. So I met you a little back. But, how much we have all grown in this last year, because we've chosen not to let those boxes limit us anymore. Mm-hmm. And Samantha, I want you to share a little bit, because you got to share a little bit last time, but talk about what it was like breaking out of that comfort zone and getting on TV.
Yeah. And it's funny because since, we talked about that in the last time, and I just sent out pitches yesterday. And so even though people look at me and they say but you're on camera all the time, because I present a lot at summits, I go on, I'm live on social media and stuff. And I'm like, yeah, but there's just a block of nerve around going on live national TV. Right. But I think, it's very much putting that out there and saying, what is on the other side of fear, right? So what is on the other side of that fear? And I feel like that's probably something I've learned from Carol too, right? What is on the other side of that fear? Why, I always like to stop and say, okay, well, why are we doing this? Right? When I'm working with my customers and I've had to start, and I think in our own growth, we miss, I always say, it's like, the mechanics, right? You see the mechanics car go by on the road, and their car is probably the worst car out on the road because they're like, well, if it breaks down, I'll just fix it, right? Where everybody else, so when it comes, right? So for me, sometimes there are elements of my business where I work with my clients and I help them gain success in that area. And then on my side, I'm like, I got to do that. So for me, I think over the course of this year, it has been really going, okay, well, why am I doing this? And what am I hoping to get from this? Because I think one of the things that Carol said that's so powerful is we go, I should be doing this, right? Oh, Clubhouse is a new thing. I should be on Clubhouse, Oh, people are raising their prices. I should be doing that. People are pitching podcasts. Oh, I should be doing that. But really, we need to stop. And I think, Carol, like we talked a little bit about questions, but I think, if we can get a few more from Carol, really to stop and say, why am I doing this? What do I want from this? Because that's, I think, one of the biggest things that we have to remember is that, and Kim, you talked about, how pricing strategies aside, you talked about how, it's an ongoing process, right? Because what gets us to a certain revenue goal or a certain revenue target is not going to work to get us to the next one. I was reading an email from somebody I subscribed to, and she was saying when her law practice hit $500,000 annually, she kind of hit a plateau, and that was because what got her to 500,000 wasn't going to get her to $1 million. Right? Wasn't going to get her to beyond. And so it's an ongoing process of us breaking outside of it. But I think one of the biggest things is stopping. And Carol, maybe you can help us, come up with a question to stop and say, why am I doing this? And what do I want from this?
Well, the first thing I would say is even when we're asking ourselves questions, we've got to take that why word out. You've got to take, it's not why. People say, know your why. I say, ask yourself, what are the top 3 compelling reasons that get me out of bed every day to do what I'm doing? Or maybe you've got the top 5, but you got to take that why out because it creates negative value even in your own brain, not just when you're asking somebody else. Think about it. You ask yourself why. What's the first thing you do? You tend to come up with a story to defend yourself. It immediately creates a defensive posture. And yes, well, when people give you, I don't know, it's a defensive posture, right? It's about, I don't necessarily want to be accountable for saying. Then I might have to do something. Then I might have to do something about it. I had a prospective client, and Krystle's heard me do this, and I teach this to people. It's not necessarily easy to do. It's simple, but it's not easy. And I was asking her a question, taking her through my process, and she said, I don't know. And I said, I understand. And then I asked her again, and she said, I don't know. And she did this 3 or 4 times. And I finally said, I know you don't know. So you got to change your whole demeanor. You've got to change your tone of voice. I said, I know. I understand you don't know. But if you did know, what would you say? All of a sudden, I couldn't write fast enough because, see, you took it away from accountability to being a game. It's what if? And you can get underneath those fears, right, that come up that block people. And you're right. Everything you want is on the other side of your fear. Right? Lisa Nichols says you're standing on the edge of the curve. Just jump. Yeah. You're either going to get wings on the way down and fly, or you're going to hit the ground, get up and put on a Band-Aid and do it again. Right? So there's really no failure. If you could reframe failure to, that was a learning lesson, right? And it takes the fear out of trying again.
Yeah.
I think I shared, I don't know if I did it on this podcast, but Krystle knows, she works with me. We just don't use the word failure. It just never comes up. It's just not in my vocabulary. But I did read something the other day by a gentleman, and it made so much sense. And he said, failure is just another place to begin again, but this time with more experience.
Yes.
Right. So that's, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think about my grandson. He's going to be 2 in a couple of weeks. And, watching him learn and grow over these last 2 years, and, how many times he would do something, and he would just fall flat on his face, and he gets up and he laughs. And what does he do? He does it over again. Sure. Right? And you're just sitting there. And when you think of children, right? They don't think of it as failure. Okay, I tried it once, it didn't work. I'm going to figure this thing out. My daughter was so determined to walk because, her older brother walked and she had to keep up with him that, she never crawled. She rolled and she didn't really get it rolling. By 2-3 months, she could roll anywhere she wanted to go. And then basically she never crawled. She rolled, she stood, she walked, she run.
Yeah.
Right. And I think sometimes we have to have that childlike attitude that it's not failure. It's just learning.
One of the things my dad shared with me that really, really, that I took through with life, and since like working with Carol, you have really always really honed that in, is that, growing up, just to share a quick story, growing up, I went to a school that was very, very tough academically. Not the, I own it now. I was not the best academic student. When it came to subjects I was not into, give me English, literature, math, I was good, but all the other stuff. And of course, then you were taught to focus on all the things that you weren't achieving, right? Not celebrating the good. So I was always like, well, I failed this. And my dad always said, he would take that report card and he's like, I want you to think of this. Every time you think you failed, think of it as that is just a stepping stone in your ladder of success. So everything is going to be another stone or another rung on your ladder as you climb your way up. And I'm grateful that I have a dad that taught me that, And so every time, sometimes we want to beat ourselves up. And back to the point where the woman was saying, I don't know, that's another place where we want to remain comfortable, because if we know, we definitely know, but it's uncomfortable for us to move past that and really be vulnerable, because that's really an uncomfortable place to be, right? So it's easier for us to say, I don't know. And I think when you said you asked those questions and you call that out and be like, no, get in there, that was a way to help somebody pull themselves out of their own comfort zone and now step into somewhere that was uncomfortable. But now she was able to reframe that and now start to be like, well, okay, now I know that now that I know this stuff and it is uncomfortable, what can I do now to move another step forward? And I think that is fantastic to really challenge someone to say, and maybe that's something we can do if we're saying, no, we know, I know, maybe I need to spend some time, or I need to get someone that can help me unlock that and pull me out of that box that I'm in.
Well, the other thing, I want to make sure I address Sam's question about having some extra questions. Think about what the very first chapter in Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich book, the whole chapter is about what? What is your burning desire? Mm-hmm. We had an amazing conversation yesterday about what is the difference between your desire and your burning desire. So that's another way you could reframe, well, why am I doing this? What is my burning desire? Right? And some other questions that I use for myself, Sam, and with clients that could help you is, what is the one thing that I get my clients to do consistently that if I were to do it would elevate every area of my business? How would the person I want to become do the thing I'm about to do? You see, when you can ask those kind of questions up front, you begin to take the judgment out of it. Mm-hmm. Why brings in self-judgment, right? What one thought that I don't have today, that if I were to adopt it, would, and then you could add that to any area of your life. What one thought that I don't have about my spouse, that if I were to adopt it, would elevate my love for them? Incredible, right? Because all these answers are here right outside your jar. So you can use these not only in business, you can use them in interpersonal relationships, and you use them to get to know yourself better. Because often what I find, especially when people are uncomfortable, is that they don't realize that the person that's in resistance is them. They want to say the problem is out there. It's the boss, it's the COVID, it's the job, it's the weather. And anything that's out there, you can't control and you can't change. So oftentimes that's where that question, how would the person I want to become? That's a powerful question. Do the thing I'm about to do. Right? So I hope that helps you.
That's the only person we can change.
Yes.
Right.
But often we stay in resistance, right? Because it's uncomfortable to look at what's going on with us. Here's something that's really powerful. This makes every one of my clients, it's made Krystle uncomfortable, right? When we talk about this. Had a client and she went through this period where like every time I saw her, she was pissed off because somebody was disrespecting her. And we were, working to unravel that. And I looked at her and I said, so help me understand. Where are you disrespecting you? Mm-hmm. And she said, what? Mm-hmm. I said, here's the thing. When we get triggered, right? All of our triggers are already inside of us. Nobody makes us do anything. They're there. Most of them are from childhood. But when we get triggered, a big reason, whether it's a small part or a big part of us, actually agrees with them. Mm-hmm. So when we get triggered, one of the things I help my clients with is take a deep breath, get into gratitude immediately. Thank you for this opportunity to learn, because when we get triggered, it shows us a place in ourselves where we need to go in and heal. Yeah. Because if we do that healing work in us, guess what? Eventually that trigger no longer triggers. Mm-hmm. So that trigger, that uncomfortableness is an opportunity. And if you could reframe that and say, ooh, go into gratitude. Thank you for this lesson opportunity. Show me. And when you say, show me where I need to heal, you could say, show me where I need to heal today to make it more specific. Once again, your caveat is you're not going to sit around and try to figure that out. Mm-hmm. An empowering question is going to come to you from something outside of your jar. I hope that helps.
Helps a lot.
Yeah. And I think it's important too to remember these empowering questions. And the reason I brought them up is because when we're looking at whether it's, especially in the online business world, I see it all the time where people are either they're glorifying being busy, or they're saying, well, failure is natural and fail publicly and embrace failure. But we're not helping people actually say, like, yes, we're going to embrace failure, but how are we going to embrace it in a way that empowers us rather than just results in us sitting there beating ourselves up?
Yes.
Right? Because we're not perfect or we made a mistake. Right. And so that's why I was asking about those empowering questions, because I feel like that's the piece that's missing. It's like, yes, we're going to fail. It's going to happen. Right. But Carol, just even what you were saying was, you're either going to grow wings and fly on the way down, or you're going to hit the ground, put a Band-Aid on and keep going.
Yes.
Right. And I think that kind of empowering, those empowering questions, and even just that conversation about, yes, you're going to fail, but here's how you can fail. And I don't want to say productively, but here's how you can fail in a way where you don't sit around beating yourself up about it later. Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah. We've got about a minute or two left, ladies. So I'd like each of you to give a closing thought. And then if you have something free you're giving away or something that you would like to promote, this is your opportunity. So Krystle, you can go first.
Thank you, Kim. So to add, my takeaway is that as we've been talking about failure and everything and experiences, is to always, and I always say this to myself, this experience is either going to be a lesson or a blessing, right? So it's a win-win. Either I learn an amazing lesson from it, or it's a blessing in my life. And either one, it's something to be grateful for. So, that helps. I think I just wanted to share that takeaway. And I also, for those, as a social media manager, I know sometimes those that are starting off in their business may not be able to make that investment right away. But I have 2 programs, short 4-week programs that I'm doing one-on-one to coach new business owners in starting off with their platforms and really giving them a social media one-on-one specific to their business. So if they are interested in that, you can contact me and I'll go through the details.
And what's the best way to contact you, Krystle?
My email is going to be, I'm going to put the email on the link, or you can reach me on LinkedIn, Krystle Dookoo, as well as on Facebook at Krystle Dookoo.
Awesome. Samantha.
Yeah, I always enjoyed these conversations and hearing Krystle, because I think it's so easy for us to all get in our own heads, and it happens to me too. So I love, if you're listening to this back, take a moment, pause, write Carol's questions down, because they are going to help you when you're trying to make that decision and you're trying to figure out, as Carol said, the difference between familiarity and comfort. So I absolutely love that. For anybody who is looking, because what I do can be very uncomfortable, helping people get into that online space and package and sell what they know. So if you are thinking about digital products or online courses, absolutely connect with me on Instagram at @Sempire_builders, or check out our YouTube channel where we explain everything that has to do with digital products and online courses in 5 minutes or less. And the channel is called Empire Builders. If you hit me up on Instagram and send me a DM, I will make sure you get the link to our YouTube channel.
Carol.
My last thought, anytime you feel uncomfortable, is all you have to do is take the next step. You don't have to know the whole picture, but you must get into action, because action begets action. And these ladies know that I believe that God only gave me a lamplight for my feet, right? Because all I need to see is the next step. And as you take that next step, believe it or not, and understand that success is in the attempt, it's not in the end result, you will grow in confidence, and you will begin to take more and more steps. And that fear, whether it's the fear of failure, whatever your fear is, will begin to fade away. Because we said earlier, everything that you want is on the other side of your fear. One of the things I'm offering that has been getting some people amazing results is my $97 for 90 minutes spring into action strategy call. You will get completely clear on what's got you stuck, what's holding you back, and you will have a strategic action plan to get you from where you are to where you want to go. And I'll be honest, I recently just started this. I've actually learned something about myself, right? And that's good for us, because we learn, people reflect back to us. I've learned that I'm really, really good at getting people not only into action, but into the right action to get immediate results. Mm-hmm. I've had 3 people tell me recently immediate results. It was incredible. So I can either provide the link to my calendar to Kim, or you can reach out to me. All my social media is at The Carol Boston, and just private message me. Let me know you want a link, you want to take advantage of this offer, because it's only up for a few weeks. Thank you, Kim.
Mm-hmm. My last thought for today is one of the things that I learned is fear is only a shadow. It's a shadow that appears real, but it has no substance to it. And, one of the things I've been talking about on my Monday Mug of Motivation is, how do you build belief? It starts with faith. Faith is knowing that what you want to do is possible. Faith gives you that courage to take that first step that Carol was talking about. That one step creates that little bit of belief. What does belief do? Belief causes you to take action. And then as you take action, you see results. And then so, everything ties in together. And I'm so thankful for you guys. And we will make sure that all the links to what everybody is offering is going to be in the show notes. And I want to encourage you to connect with these ladies on social media. You are going to learn so much from each one of them. So this has been Krystle Dookoo, Carol Boston, and Samantha King, and myself, Kim Thompson-Pinder, on the Author to Authority podcast. Thank you so much for listening, and we will see you on the very next episode. Bye.
Bye.